Hey everyone, it's Phil. Welcome to the Before the Bat World's Finest Nightwing special. This is issue number 4. We're going to go way back to the beginning of Nightwing with the Judas Contract from Tales of the Teen Titans 42, 43, and 44, and annual number, this is 3. So, I had to go to some special guests who are big Titans fans. First, from the fandom zone, we have Charles.
Hello.
And Karen.
Hello.
And of course, Charles' other co-host from Next Stop Everywhere, Mr. Jesse Jackson. No, not that one.
Hello. Excited to talk Nightwing.
It's the Invasion of the Charles podcasts.
Yes.
And the Karen podcast and the Jesse's podcast. Because,
that's true. Good point.
You know, it's collisions of all the podcasts, because I also do a podcast with Jesse. So
because we're incestual, apparently.
That's right.
Are.
Crisis on podcast.
That's right.
So I know the first question I wanted to ask is I know you all are big Titans fans. Did all of you read this when it first came out, or did you discover it later on?
Who do you want to go to first?
Whoever wants to.
I don't know that I read it exactly when it came out, but it was near then.
Okay.
It might have been early 90s instead of the 80s. Yeah, I wasn't in high school still. I was out of high school, so it was early 90s.
Yes, probably 90s for me.
Yeah.
Speaking for myself, I've been collecting Titans since, at least the new Teen Titans, since DC Comics Presents 26, their first appearance. So I had to get I bought this right off the rack back in the ye olden days, and so I've got my original issue still.
Nice.
I do not have. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I do not have the original issues. I sold all my all my comics to buy my now wife at the time, girlfriend, an engagement ring, including all my Teen Titans. But yes, definitely was buying Titans and read this originally as it came out. Though I would have it seemed, I thought it happened later than it did. And so I'm a little pleasantly surprised that it was back in 84. I would have thought it would have been later.
Yeah, this was like pre-crisis, because like I said, I got it in the probably mid 90s or so, because 1984, I was 6 years old, as little before my comics reading time.
Ouch.
Sorry, guys.
It's all right.
So
we'll just let that slide.
Yeah, that's scary.
So I
have comic books older than you, Phil.
Yeah.
So do I.
Yeah, Phil, I was 24 at the time, 25, and had, I went through a spell where I wasn't buying comic books because I was still, going to high school, and my mom hated comic books and just where they were everywhere. And so when I moved out of the house in like around 79, 80, until I got married in 84, for that 4 years, I just went through every comic book I could buy because no one was telling me I couldn't have them. And then once you get married, then you've got the whole thing about room and space. Not everyone has a secret lair basement like Charles, where he has all his comics lined up on bookshelves.
Well, unless you marry someone that you met at a comic book shop.
Absolutely.
And that's a whole different story.
Yeah. I wish I'd known at the time. There are companies that will take your individual issues and bind them. And I've done that on several books that I loved. And I would have done that a lot more if that had been available back then.
But then you would have ruined the issue by binding it.
Right.
Yeah. But
yeah,
see,
it doesn't matter to him. But
it does not matter to me whatsoever. I sold them for $0.25 each back when I, just got rid of them. So, And I don't board and bag my comics. I just read them and throw them in a drawer. So
Right?
Sacrilege.
yes.
It's
Uh,
all right.
Someone get the EKG.
You know what? He enjoys them.
Yes, I do.
I'm okay with the fact that he loves reading them, and that's what he does. I'm
Absolutely.
all right with it.
Now, I don't know if you're going to get into this, Philip, as we take control of your podcast, but Charles and I have a Titan connection that
Here we
is
go.
actually our origin story, right, Charles?
Yes. Yeah.
A Titan connection. Yeah, babe.
No. That's a whole different origin story.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
it is.
That's our secret origin story.
Okay. Well, you said Titan connection, and
Yeah,
I was wondering what that meant. So
No. Do you want to tell the story, Jesse, or should I?
Why don't we take turns? You start us.
Okay. Let's see. Once upon a time, back in the 90s, while I was in college at the University of Central Florida, I joined an organization called Titan Talk. And Titan Talk was what's called then an amateur press association, which is a fancy way of saying, okay, people typed up stories and ran copies however they could at Kinko's or wherever, and then mailed them in, and then they got stapled together and then mailed out to the club.
And those were called zines, or zines,
Yeah.
as in magazines.
There you go.
And I'm from Texas and grew up in Louisiana, so I speak it with an accent. And this was pre-internet.
Yes.
And so
In the dark times.
yes, if Charles wrote a Flash story, because the Flash was his favorite character at the time, and these were, fan fiction, he would write it, print out the 4-page story, and then was it 55 copies? Do you remember?
It depended on our membership at the time.
Right.
Because I was like the assistant for a while there.
Yeah.
While my wife was in charge of it. We usually did about 45 copies.
Right. And you would mail them to what was called a central mailer. And so he or she would get all these packages from the 30 or 40 members that were part of this APA. And there would be, coalition parties, especially if hopefully you had people that were in the club or friends of yours in that area. And you can just imagine, here's 30 different things from people, and you'd 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you'd put them all together. Someone would do cover art, someone would do back art, and you'd massively staple it, and then you would email it. Gosh, you would mail it back to the person.
This is before even emailing.
Yes. And so you would mail back a completed issue that had not only your story or your thoughts in there, but everyone else's.
very cool.
Yep.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then one of those collations was in Newark, New Jersey, which is not a place I would recommend going. But during one of those collations, I went out to hang with like some of our friends, and then met my wife Lori for the very first time.
Oh,
And that's where we met.
Yeah, and it was at first when you joined, it was weird because one of the things you did is you commented on the previous issue. So if you like your first issue, you're like, why are all they talking about stuff that's not on there? Because you would do that. And we actually had some pretty good, Michael now works for DC Comics.
Michael McAllister.
Right?
Michael McAllister, yeah.
Yeah. Before my time, but the artist, the big one, right, was Rob?
Rob Liefeld.
Yeah.
was a member at one point.
Hmm.
Marv Wolfman and George Perez were honorary members.
Yes.
And George was very active. He would contribute custom covers that we would use on some issues, or like he would be part of a jam cover, some things like that. So it was very cool. And then you've had other people like Brian K. Vaughan, used to be a member of Titan Talk, and some other people, and even yours truly wrote a couple of comics for DC Comics. So
Yes. And then Jay Faber.
Jay Farber, yeah.
Farber is Noble Causes, and he's written for the Titans. He was at the end. We did this. So it was really, and there was a lot of wonderful amateur writers that were part of this. And there'd be some stories that were but often the stories were really well done and a lot of fun. We created all these alternate worlds and some beautiful art.
Yes.
And it was a warm kind of together place. This was not a serious, I'm trying to build my craft. Though some people were pretty hard working at it. But most people tended to focus on what they liked about a story versus, ripping it apart. And
we had the common bond of that we were all Titans fans.
Yes,
and that way because of that, we got to know each other well, and a lot of us became friends. Jesse became friends of Lori and myself so much that he came out and gave my wife away at our wedding.
Yes, I had never met them, but we had emailed, and by now we had emailed. We had done letters, a lot of letters, and a few long distance phone calls. Charles went through a little medical scare, and
a tiny bit. It's a
a tiny bit, yeah. And so, when they were going to get married, Lori reached out and said, I won't get into a lot of details here, but I would really like you to give me away at my wedding. And we'd never met them, and I said, you can either be incredibly honored or you could be a little wigged out. And I chose to be incredibly honored, and we flew up to Columbus, and it was truly one of my best weekends. We just had a blast, and it was a great ceremony, and it was beautiful. And seeing all these, other members of Titan Talk had came in for the wedding, because we kind of felt like this was pretty, special. And so that's why Charles and I, when you said, hey, let's talk Titans, we're like, absolutely. And that's why we were so pulling for Warner TNT to do a Titan.
We wanted that so bad.
Because this would have been totally full circle.
Yeah, we wanted that. We wanted to do that Titans podcast so bad.
Oh, I know. I know last year
and we
all
were,
that
and
talk.
and Rob Southgate, he's like, he already said, okay, you guys can have it when you want it. And we were all cleared, and we're like, okay, just announce the show, pick up the show.
Yes.
And no, it's
yeah,
no fail music.
And so kind of
exactly,
not to take us off too far, but that's why, and Charles and I have been friends now way long. I mean, over 20 years.
I think Jesse's saying too long, don't you?
No. And so Titans has always been, this connection between us. And it was only, because Charles was always a Doctor Who fan, but back in the, early 90s, the dark times, there wasn't that connection then. And so when Rob came to me and said, I want to do, do you want to do a Doctor Who podcast? I just knew the person I had to contact was Charles. And so we've had a lot of fun with that. Karen, and then we're going to go back to Philip. What's your background on the Titans?
I read it.
Okay.
Well, I'm a DC person.
Right.
That's my main background. And when I was little, I read Spider-Man and stuff because that was accessible. to me when I was little. Archie and Spider-Man and stuff like that. I used to run around the house, and don't judge me, but I had a towel that I used to put on my back as a
Who didn't?
cape. And I don't know why I thought having a towel on my back as a cape made me Spider-Man, because Spider-Man doesn't have a cape.
No.
But that's okay.
That was my thing. And then as I grew up, I morphed into a DC person. And of course, the Justice League and then the Teen Titans kind of went hand in hand at that, when they became their own entity. So
Yeah. And Charles, how about you? How far back did you go on the Titans?
I went back actually. Well, I got into it during the 70s when they brought the series back. It was only for like a little while. It was during what they call back then the DC implosion, where they had a whole bunch of new titles, and then they ended up canceling a whole bunch of titles.
Yeah.
And
Like-
so like
every other decade.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, but this one was kind of this was a huge cancellation.
Yeah.
So yeah, they introduced concepts. This was like when they introduced Mal Duncan, or as far as like with the Bumblebee, and the Joker's daughter, who became the Harlequin and joined the Titans, and then you had this great like Titans East and Titans West team up and stuff like that. So that's when I first got into Teen Titans.
And I can remember, the original 60s. It was just cool because I always loved Robin. And to see Kid Flash and Aqualad and, Wonder Girl, which of course didn't make any sense because, we didn't really have that person. And then, of course, you really thought Speedy should be in the group, but wasn't, and kind of was sometimes. So when they announced that, you were going to do Wolfman and Perez were going to take over this, I was just thrilled because Legion of Superheroes #1, but Teen Titan 1A of my favorite groups. So back to you, Philip.
Well, I was going to say, I got into Titans kind of in a reverse way. Like, I started reading comics, like, really hardcore, like, 87, 88, like, right after Crisis. So I got into Batman and Superman, and then I eventually got into Nightwing, and then I got curious about Nightwing's, like, backstory, especially with the Titans, so that's when I went back and started, like, buying up every Teen Titans issue I could find.
That's actually like really logical. So
yeah, that is. Yes.
Yes.
I think that might be how I got into reading these particular Teen Titans titles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is the Nightwing connection.
Charles, do you remember so you were watching this? What were your thoughts when he had kind of retired and then he came back as Nightwing? Because I know. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say that was my question. Did you think it was gonna be permanent, Charles, or did you think he was gonna go back to Robin in like a year?
I wasn't sure. The issue, the New Teen Titans Volume 1, number 39, is one of my favorite all-time issues of Titans comics, because it's the departure of Dick Grayson and Wally West from the group.
Mm-hmm.
Wally West, of course, goes off to become the Flash eventually, during after the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths. But Dick, he still stayed with the group. He just left the identity of Robin, and he just kind of hung around as Dick Grayson. So I kind of wondered, well, okay, I guess he's done being Robin. And then we got the Judas Contract where he becomes Nightwing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, I thought it was just great because I love the costume, collar and all. At the time, I just really loved that costume. And I thought it was really cool. It made him feel more adult and grown up. And it just looked like, and I love the name Nightwing. I thought it suited his character. It's obviously stuck, it's stuck since. So this wasn't just going to be a flash in the pan. and I thought it was great.
I also like that issue because it's very poignant how Wally is kind of down about that when he leaves. They're like, okay, bye, and then Nightwing, Dick stays with the Titans, and they're almost more upset about him stepping down as Robin. And Wally says, well, I guess I know my place.
Well, to be fair, he was the leader.
Yeah.
So, So it's just like, okay, fine. Screw you guys. I'm going after the Justice League.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. I loved, as someone who grew up reading DC Comics, and, we just talked about, I met Elliot S. Magan today, and
name dropper.
remembering all the, Kurt Swan, being my Superman, and just all these different, and I used to love Tales of Krypton, and when they would go to the body city of Kandor, and Jimmy Olsen was Flamebird, and Clark was Nightwing, and I've always, and one of the things I hate about the new continuity is there isn't that Superman Batman friendship anymore, and that Robin would have thought of Clark as an uncle, and to have him Nightwing to kind of honor both Batman and Superman picking that role, because Nightwing was kind of a Batman of Kandor, and then so it's kind of both. It was really cool to me, and to see, because comic characters don't change a lot back then, and then and to see them actually take on a new role, I would have been upset if they had changed it. And so I was thrilled that it happened, and was just hoping that it would stick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just, this was like, at the time, this was DC's #1 book, right? It was this over DC, and like it was X-Men at Marvel. Those were like the big two.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and I find that really cool, because people forget that now. That at the times there, no book was hotter, and I don't know if I sent it to you, Philip, but I know I sent it to Karen and Charles. Brad Meltzer, he had written a really nice, column or article about this Titans and Terra and how that affected him, and he made that point too, that how popular this book was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was not only popular but groundbreaking, in that it not only saw a superhero change into another superhero, but it gave backstories of several different characters, and it also had a superhero that betrayed her team for seemingly no reason, and it was just different from all other comic books at the time. And I think that's what made it so popular and intriguing to people, because it was just so different from the things that happened. And not just that, but it had a really great fight in it. And it's hard to do with pen and paper. The fight at the end of this book, even though it's like, after a monologue, which, that's the most trite thing ever, but you're kind of glad it happens because it gives Jericho and Nightwing a chance to get there in time to start this epic fight. It's really great on the page. And that was one of the things I loved about it, is that, there's some hackneyed parts to it, but it doesn't matter, because the fight, the dialogue, the backstory.
I think the chemistry.
Oh, yeah, it's so great. And, meeting Jericho for the first time, learning about Deathstroke's background, seeing Nightwing for the first time. I mean, just so many things happen in this book, and it doesn't seem junked up. And it's just so great.
And the other thing, it feels like it lasts longer than 4 issues.
I know, right?
I mean, this feels like this was an epic that took a year to spin through. And no, well, I mean, there certainly were storylines built in over that, but absolutely amazing.
Yeah, if this story had been done today, this would be at least 12 issues long with all kinds of tie-ins
and different covers.
It would launch about 8 different titles spinning out of it and stuff. So
yeah, agreed.
Oh yeah, because I mean, you had the Deathstroke origin, so you would have spun out a Deathstroke book out of this, a Jericho book.
That's one of the things that I love that a lot of people overlook about this storyline. This features the origin of Deathstroke.
Oh yeah,
and it's such a big part in how it plays, and then it leads right up to the origin of Jericho as well, because we find out how he became how he is. So yeah, it works so well, and you get the introduction of Deathstroke's wife, Adeline.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
and she's pretty important later on too. So
yeah, she is.
That's a big deal. Even though it doesn't seem like a big thing in this comic, she's huge later on, and this is essentially her origin story as well. We get to see her training her husband as well. The one thing that was a little disconcerting to me reading this again was them calling him the Terminator because I was like, okay, that's Deathstroke. I got to keep it in my head that it's Deathstroke. It's not the Terminator. It's Deathstroke.
Well, he had a full name of Deathstroke the Terminator.
I know, but they just shortening it to the Terminator, and I was like, okay, yeah, I remember they called him that, but yeah, okay, I get it.
And isn't the story that originally they wanted to call him just the Terminator, but they had to add the Deathstroke because of the movie?
The movie, yeah.
Some movie featuring some
weirdo,
big Austrian guy,
some governor dude. I didn't get it, but yeah, it wasn't that big a deal because I did remember they did that, but it was weird because I know him as Deathstroke now. When you go back and reread comics like this, even if it's only been a few years, and it's been way longer than a few years for me with this book, things like that hit you. And in this case, not only that, but like Tara is bad. I mean, just bad.
Yeah.
And when you go back and reread this, you just want to shake all of them and say, Don't even think about it. She's bad. Don't try to look into this and say she's being mind controlled. She's bad. So, I mean, there's all sorts of things that you see now and you just take it for granted that it's one way. And it's almost like, you've retconned it in your own mind.
Yeah, that's a great point, Karen, because I don't know why I wasn't more shocked. And I think maybe just, I kind of whitewashed my mind. But, he's sleeping with an underage. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I got to do this.
Sweet Christmas.
And maybe just I remember that she smoked, and a smoking girl means she's bad.
And she totally whores herself up with makeup and like the big lingerie, and it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. And
when you said you were disconcerted, that's what I thought you were going to say, Karen.
Oh, no, there's that too. Definitely. But we know so much about them now compared to then. And going back and reading it now, you're like, okay, I know so much about them. Why didn't I know this then? You feel weird about it.
You have a fresh perspective.
Yeah, exactly. You see it differently now when you read it. And yes, it is gross that he's sleeping with her.
So the origin of Deathstroke is that he's a statutory rapist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing, and
but
I don't
she's
want
bad.
I don't want to get into, oh man, well, back in the day when comics were good, but they had built this family of the Titans, and the characters were what we cared about.
Mhm.
You know, we love the stories, we love the excitement, but this relationships and the characters and the everyone had their place, um, and to have this being broken up the way it was just heartbreaking.
Mhm. And wanting to call them all naive for thinking that she could have been mind controlled, and I mean, she was always really snippy with them.
Well, the only one that doesn't really buy into it is Raven, but she keeps her mouth shut. She doesn't say
Right.
anything.
Right.
She's just like, I keep sensing the darkness in you, but I think I'm just going to sit in my room and not tell
Right.
anybody about it.
She never says anything.
Yeah.
And the whole point of her Tara wanting to go after Raven personally is because of that. But she
Right.
never really does. And you know, there's that plot hole, but again, you have to hand wave it because it's just so good. You know? Of course she's not going to, because they have to make the book, which is amazing. So
Yep.
yeah, it's crazy good. And
I think-
I hand wave the relationship between Deathstroke and Tara because she's evil. You know?
But But I think that's why it seems so groundbreaking, is because, I mean, remember comics at the time, you know, like the early mid 80s, superheroes weren't portrayed like that, and you didn't have like the insane 15, 16-year-old running around. So
right.
I think that's why they seem so naive, is because superheroes, especially in DC, didn't see this kind of stuff before.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people see this as like DC's version of the Dark Phoenix saga.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you had a heroine succumbing to the dark side of the force, for lack of a better term, and becoming a villain.
Right.
And that ultimately ends up dying in the process.
Yeah.
Of going insane.
Yeah. Although in this case, it's just, yeah, she ends up dying, but there never really is a good explanation for why she does it. You know, there is nothing that
she's
makes...
just inherently evil.
She's just bad. She's just malevolent. So I actually kind of like that. That, you know, they try and think the best of her for the whole... I mean, all the way up until the end.
Yeah.
And
they try to rationalize it.
And it's just, it leaves them with this sense of betrayal at the end. Well, what could we have done? And they just feel helpless about it. And it's just very unsettling, which makes for a good story, I think.
But yeah, once again, the Charles's point, if this was published today, you know, it would have been like a 12-issue arc, and at least one or two of those issues would have been going into Tara's backstory to tell you why she's so insane and evil.
Exactly. Yeah, I kind of like there's no why.
Yeah, you don't have to overanalyze it, and you don't have to explain everything.
Mm-hmm. And I like that they, even though she did all this stuff and did horrible, horrible things, they made sure to keep up the facade to save her brother's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why not? Why hurt someone else in this process? And, you know, that's kind of the moral of the story is, you know, once all these people are hurt, why hurt someone else? And, you know, that's what good guys do.
I know, I just read this a few hours ago, and I got to the last, you know, towards the end of the last issue, and they're all at the funeral, and, you know, the Titans are there, the Outsiders are there, and Batman and Jason Todd, and I just want to say, Jason Todd, you're next.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah, you can't... A lesson from this, Jason?
And, you know, I always think of that with the Alan Moore, you know, what do you get the man who has everything story, is Jason Todd is the Robin in it. And I always like, Jason, you'll forever, you know, because that story will live on forever. And that happens to be the Robin that's in that, is just kind of...
That's actually one of his best stories as Jason, before, you know, he gets killed.
Yeah.
I like the Alan Moore's portrayal of him in that issue.
I agree.
Yeah.
And so it's just very, you know, and it was far reaching to the DC universe, the story, and without going back, right, as Charles is saying, with all this, we didn't do all these turnovers. I mean, this crossover and everything happening in
Yes.
spin-off. It was just
It was a nice little self-contained story.
yes, that had major repercussions.
Right.
Well, yeah, because you had the connection to the Outsiders because of Tara's brother Brian Markov, Geoforce. So it affected him as well.
Yes.
Yeah. But the one thing I wanted to ask, we brought up Jason Todd. For you guys who were reading this, like, back in the day, was there any outcry about Jason Todd's pre-crisis origin? No, that he was like a Dick Grayson clone exactly in his origin.
No, it was after post-crisis that people wanted to kill him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Once he started stealing tires off the Batmobile in the revised origin, then that's when people wanted to really kill him.
And yeah, I would agree with that, Charles. Right?
He was a punk, and he was annoying.
Yeah.
Right. It was when he became annoying in the comics that people were like, we don't like him anymore.
Right.
And then it was like an onslaught when they had that contest.
Oh yeah.
That was...
It was like dripping raw meat into a piranha.
That was crazy. Yeah. I wonder how many calls they got to save him. I mean,
I think I heard it wasn't that big of a divide. I think he only lost by like, was it 50 votes or 100 votes, something like that?
It was 100 votes, I think. But yeah, I think it's online. If you look on Wikipedia, they've probably got it. But I think there was a lot of people there like felt bad for him because of so many people hated him.
Not me.
Yeah, not me. I was glad to see him go.
Me too.
And I think other people were just like, oh, let's see if they actually go through with it.
I think that was part of it. I do think that he was not served well by the two different origins.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, you're right, was very much, Dick Grayson light.
Yeah.
And I think they did such a better job with Tim Drake.
Yeah, that was the one good thing about Jason Todd's death is that we got Tim Drake.
Agreed.
Yes.
I think we're all agreed on that.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. And then when Jason came back, I was very skeptical of it, but I think it turned out okay in the end. But I was kind of glad to see him go. I was glad they made a fist and went ahead and did it. So, yay. Yeah. But again, back to the Teen Titans. Sorry. Hold on.
What is this bizarre segue?
It's just like being in the fandom zone.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, you have entered the fandom zone.
Exactly.
I don't know if I have much more on this, but does anyone have any final thoughts on this storyline?
Well, I want to say that this book is, I'm hoping a lot of people are listening that watch the DC shows that are on the air right now, because this is a book that's kind of important if you watch those shows. Now, the origins aren't the same of Deathstroke and Hive and stuff like that. They're not the same as what's on Arrow right now. However, I think it's kind of important to read this so that you kind of get a different perspective on his character. The fact that he's kind of a bounty hunter in this. It kind of gives a bit of depth to his character. And I'm still wondering if his wife is ever going to come up on the show as something. I'm still of the camp that that's what Damian is using to stay alive. Is that fount from her?
Okay.
Yeah, it would be great. It would be great to see, them bring Adeline Kane in, and then bring Deathstroke back on Arrow, and then kind of work this in somehow.
Right. Well, see, he's part of Hive, Damian Dark, right? And he's using some sort of weird statue-y thing to keep young and to heal himself. And one of my theories is that it might be Adelaide's blood, her serum tainted blood from her husband, which is, one of the things that happens in Hive in the comics. So, and Charles knows that's one of my theories, but I guess I haven't shared that with you guys.
It's pretty good, isn't it?
It is a good theory. I like it a lot.
It's completely possible because, like, those Arrow writers seem to be big Titans fans.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, they seem to be drawing heavily from Batman and Titans.
Yeah,
so,
they
yeah.
do.
So yeah.
Anyway,
if any Titan stuff comes up, it's probably going to be on Arrow.
Right. So if that's one of my theories, and if any part of that comes up, I mean, this is a book to read to get any of that backstory, and at least it kind of ties in, and it has some of the characters, and I think it's interesting, and stuff in these books really does come up on the TV shows, and it also gives a different layer of DC Comics to people that watch the shows, and I like to tie things in together, and this is a really good way to read that. In that it's self-contained. You don't have to go and read 1,000 comics to get the whole storyline. 4 comics, 5 comics, and you have the whole storyline. So I just think it's a perfect way. Pick up this trade paperback. It's a collected edition on Comixology, and then I would recommend getting that issue before this to read where the Flash, Kid Flash, and Robin decide to step down from their personas. You should read this maybe to get some DC knowledge under your belt. It's really cool, and if you like the shows on TV, you're most likely going to like stuff like this, and it'll broaden your perspective on things.
One of the things that I was a little disappointed by over the years is the Judas Contract was almost adapted for DC's animated projects.
Yes.
And we almost got this around 2007, 2008, but then they abruptly canceled the project, which just infuriated me because I really wanted to see this adapted. And this is back when DC was doing some pretty decent animated adaptations. And so, yeah, I was just like, oh, this would be perfect.
They're making one for this year, right?
Yeah, I think they said in April. It's a
is it good?
Justice League versus Teen Titans.
Yeah, but it's not going to be the Judas Contract.
No.
So yeah, that's coming out.
And I don't know why, because this is a great self-contained story. There is enough drama, and you're right. They have taken some really great storylines and made some wonderful animated movies, and this would have been wonderful to see.
They are actually Deathstroke, the Judas Contract, coming out in looks like
Say what?
May.
What?
With Brian Parks starring as Deathstroke.
Where are you getting this from?
IMDb.
Okay.
Marv Wolfman, Brian Parks.
That's interesting.
It's going to be
that's new, because that's news to me.
Okay.
I guess maybe I need to post a damn good coffee article.
I don't know anything
there we
about
go.
Because I think you've just scooped everybody.
but it's there on IMDb.
Yep.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Good.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know anything about it other than the fact that it's on IMDb and it says it's coming out in 2016. Has an official site.
That's interesting.
Okay. Now I know what I'll be.
Or is this a fan film?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They have a Facebook page.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting.
All right.
I'm going to have to dig into this one.
I think it's a fan film. Look, Charles Skaggs as Dick Grayson.
Yeah.
It actually might be a
If
fan.
I'm going to be anybody, I'm going to be Wally West.
Absolutely.
He wasn't in the Judas Contract, though.
He was, he leaves at the beginning, and that's it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a fan film. Sorry about that.
That's
Okay.
okay. No worries. I was just like, "Er?"
Yeah, I got all excited when I looked it up, and I was like, "What?"
I was like, ruh-roh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been cool if they had made that animated movie, because the animation was.
Yeah.
Those movies were great.
Yep.
Absolutely.
But I know they're talking in June, I guess, DC. Well, they have something called Rebirth coming. Everyone's
Yeah, that would.
speculating if it's going to be a soft reboot, a hard reboot, what's going on. But
I personally think that it's going to be a soft reboot because they've invested a lot into, this new continuity.
mm-hmm.
So I think they're going to either just tweak some things and they'll come out with a bunch of. We'll probably get a new Nightwing #1
Oh, I hope so.
because they kind of, they've kind of hinted that Grayson might be ending the comic Grayson, and
Mhm.
then Nightwing would be, they could relaunch it with a new #1 in June, and although they've got some interesting developments with him hooking up with the Court of Owls recently,
Ooh,
as a result of the Robin War crossover.
that'd be nice.
Yeah, so where he gets manipulated into joining them.
I love shadowy things.
Yeah.
But hey, DC, how about a rebooted Teen Titans book written by Charles Skaggs?
I would write that for free. I would write that book for free.
Too soon. Let them pay you first.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
true. Paying would be good. You pay me $1 so I can say it's a professional gig.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'll do it for $1. How's that?
$1.
$1.
Where are my $2? Sorry.
DC, all he needs is $1 and sharks with freaking laser beams.
There we go. Exactly.
That's right. I don't have that. I need to get that clip.
I would write the Titans in a heartbeat.
Or you know what book I want back that they got rid of once they rebooted for New 52 is the Red Robin book.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Would you want him as Red Robin or just as Robin again?
Who, Tim Drake?
Yeah.
Maybe Red Robin. I did enjoy that series.
Just to distinguish him from leave Damian as Robin then.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Dick Grayson as Nightwing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you hear the whole reason why in New 52 they put him in a red Nightwing suit?
No.
I heard somewhere, I don't know if it's true, it was online, but they were saying they wanted to align him more with the other Robins because all the other Robins were red. Even two of them had red in their name.
I actually believe that.
I do
and
too.
And it makes sense because, well, from that point, he's a former Robin. It does make sense. But that being said, I think he looks much cooler in blue.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It makes sense, but it's lame.
It is. Yeah, exactly. It's like, and I'm hoping, if there is a new Nightwing #1, he better be in blue.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Nightwing. Night is blue and black. That's night.
Yeah.
Right? When you look outside and it's night, it's all black and blue and dark and shady. There's no red out at night.
Well, if a blood red moon.
No. What is that? Once every 6 months? No. It's
They were thinking of branding, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Don't care. It should be for the sake of the books, not for the sake of their pockets. See, and that's the problem now.
Right.
This
Yes.
Teen Titans book was for the sake of the story, period. They weren't thinking about lining their pockets. And see, that's the deal.
Well, the book was already popular by this point, and they just they were in the zone.
Right.
Not just the fandom zone. They were in the zone.
In the zone.
And so this is Wolfman and Perez at their peak.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I like both of them no matter what they do. Their run on Wonder Woman, everything they've done has just been really great. And this was, I think, one of the just quintessential for them. You want to recommend something of theirs? This is it. You hand someone this book. So yeah, I have no words about this book. I mean,
it's kind of awesome to hear you fangirling.
Oh,
yes.
That's great.
Well, I mean, The only other thing I would fangirl over this hard, because I think that as far as superheroes go, this is, other than the slight hand waves, this is almost a perfectly written, good guys versus bad guys story. In that there's shades of gray in between and all that stuff. That there are a couple other things that I would fangirl over harder: Watchmen and Sandman.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think those books are perfect.
I would throw in Starman with that.
Starman too. Yes, definitely.
Yes.
I love Starman. And there are some others in there that are great, but just amazing. And Sandman is on that fringe because it's not a superhero book, but as far as storytelling goes in a comic book, I find that book amazingly layered and perfect and just so.
It's a It's a masterpiece.
Oh,
it truly is. Charles, if we had won the lottery, I would suggest that we go through Starman, omnibus one by one, or certain episodes, and do podcast of that. That would be fun. But just there's no time. Time.
I was looking to squeeze this in.
Yes, I know.
Well, if you won the lottery, no one would have the work. So
exactly,
that's true.
Yes. I'm going to echo what they say. This was, one of my favorite teams with some of my favorite characters. I am a big Dick Grayson fan, and I loved seeing him kind of take on this new persona. I love the idea that he's a leader, and that's one of the things they showed in this version of the Titans. And so great stuff, and I'm so glad we got to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
But I do have one more question because I don't get to talk to Ians that often. I'll start with Jesse, go to Charles, and then Karen. Is this your favorite era of Nightwing, Jesse?
That's a great question. What I wanted from Nightwing, and I think the quick answer is yes. I think this is my favorite era. But what I always wanted is I wanted Birds of Prey, but with Barbara and Dick in the role versus Barbara and Diana. I just thought that him being out in the field, and there's kind of power couple doing this thing, could have made for some really fun romantic banter, some nice information back and forth, and I've always kind of liked that couple. Though going back to Titan Talk, there were a couple of people would do worlds where Kara Zor-El and Dick Grayson got together, and I always thought that was an interesting mix, that he would be drawn to someone so powerful, and she would be drawn by his leadership and his ethics and all this stuff. So I think that is that is what I wanted. I had a little bit of problem with the Bloodhaven. Like, hey, we've told you forever that Gotham is the worst place in the world. Guess what? Next to Gotham is a place even worse that we just have never mentioned before. But I did like that, he kind of took his own path and did things. So, yeah, but if I had to pick, I think this, with him leading the new Teen Titans, the relationships he made with, Wally and even, Corey, and the relationship, I thought it was interesting and fun.
That's cool. Charles?
Same question?
Yes.
All right. I'm kind of torn too, because for like Jesse, I mean, this is where we've got to know Nightwing first. And so this is almost like, this is your first real grasp of the character of who Dick Grayson became. And this is like one of my all-time favorite teams, probably my favorite superhero team, and at one of my all-time favorite eras. So it's hard not to say that. That being said, I also love the Bloodhaven era. I love what Chuck Dixon did. I thought it was great. He at that point it felt like he was actually his own man, doing his own thing. He had his own rogues gallery. He wasn't just ripping off Batman villains.
Yeah.
And I love that. You know, and I thought it was a great series. It was a lot of fun. So I'm kind of torn between those two moments, those two eras. But I think just for the sake of nostalgia, I'll probably slide back to this era, the Judas Contract era, as my favorite Nightwing.
Okay, I have to say that Charles stole my answer completely. In fact, I was actually going to use the word nostalgic. As far as nostalgia goes,
each other's brain.
I know. As far as nostalgia goes, yes, this. But when he went out on his own and got his own villains, became his own standalone superhero, that was also a really great time for him. But when I think about Nightwing, I think about this Nightwing. So I think it's so hard to say favorite or not. But as far as Nightwing stories goes, this is probably my favorite Nightwing story. So I guess I'll have to say this. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
Yeah. But I mean, I love those early Chuck Dixon issues. And for me, that's when I really got into Nightwing, and it's nostalgia for me too. So
yeah.
Those are definitely.
If the stars somehow aligned and I got to write Nightwing, I would definitely bring Nightwing's Rogues Gallery back.
Yeah.
I don't know why they're not using him in the new 50 there. And I thought Torque was a great character. I love Brutali. I love, just Lady Vic. I just thought they were great characters. So I don't know why they're not being used.
Yeah, it is. And I do love that that Dick Grayson he has made, all of us fans back of the old day proud. Mm-hmm. Just like, Wally West has been amazing as the Flash. And it is to see these quote unquote sidekicks kind of find their own way is something as old time fans, and some of us are older than others, it is very nice to see.
Yeah. And, one of the things that struck me when I reread this, I meant to say this before, is that when they talk about him being a leader of the Titans here, you can see that he doesn't have powers, but he has things that have been handed down to him through all the other people he's teamed up with, not just Batman, but he's got a little detective there. He's gotten some of Superman's sort of morality and code. Exactly.
Yes.
You can see little pieces of all the other people he's interacted with, and that makes him a great leader, that he learned from all those experiences. And not only that, but his physicality, even hurt, Deathstroke couldn't catch up with him. And it's that sort of quality that makes him multidimensional, interesting, and you can see the natural born leader in him. So I think this is why he was so intriguing and why he became such a great character.
He's basically, I always say, he's Batman without all the mental issues.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's much more well-adjusted than Batman, that's for sure.
Right. I mean, he still has his baggage.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
But he has a better attitude about it.
Right. His baggage has wheels and a handle. Whereas Batman's is like super heavy and makes his shoulders slump over. I mean, Batman's is bad.
With Batman, his grief and rage consumed him.
Mm-hmm.
But with Dick, losing his parents, it upset him, but he moved on with his life.
Right.
He wasn't trapped there like Batman is.
He carries it,
yeah.
but it's not a weight.
Right. It doesn't.
It's something that's always with him, but it's not something that affects him on a daily basis. So it's,
Because I don't know if anyone's reading the current Grayson series.
Yes.
Which I absolutely love, by the way. And it's a great series. And if you see him in that, he's happy-go-lucky. He's a hero, but he's not the brooding, miserable, like SOB that Batman is. Okay.
Yeah.
He's still the Dick Grayson that we loved back in the day. And that's what's one of the things I love about the current Grayson series.
Yeah.
And I think, I would argue that it's Alfred, right? That Alfred was a mom to him, the way, and I know with the current, like the Gotham and everything, you see a lot of this, but it appears that, there was a lot of growth in there. And I don't know, maybe Bruce actually didn't want Dick to do what he had to do. And so he was trying to make this happen. But I do think it makes him a unique character to have, a lot of the detective skills, the acrobats, but yet not that weight that so many other do, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was even during No Man's Land, Batman even came out and said, Dick, you're a better man than I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's great to see that, he's been mentored by all these people, and yet not only do they have this sense of pride in him, but they also see more in him. They see this greatness in him. So yes, they mentored him, but they see that not only can he go off on his own and be his own man, but that he can become something more. And that's what makes a superhero. I mean, that's ultimately.
Several years ago when they were going to, DC Dan Bill talked about, killing off Nightwing. And, you hear in interviews with him that he was looking for what character would unite the different heroes. And he said Dick Grayson was by far that. And I do think that's to the character's credit that in a lot of ways he touches, everyone.
No, I think that's about it for me. Just if you want to tell everyone, do your plugs, tell everyone where they can find you.
Ladies first, then we'll do Charles, then me.
Sure. Mine got more complicated.
Uh-oh.
You can find me on Twitter at Aleveria, Aleveria. I do have an About Me link there, but About Me has revamped, and I don't have any links there anymore.
Uh-oh.
So follow me on Twitter, and I'm going to find a way to get my links in a bio area. So
otherwise, you'd have to run them down like I do.
Yeah, that's not happening. So follow me on Twitter.
You coward.
At least. And we'd be here for another hour.
That's true. We would. So as for me, of course, I'm at Charles Skaggs on Twitter. The Twitter machine, as Karen likes to call it.
Twitter machine.
And at Charles Skaggs on the Instagrams. and Google Plus for all you crazy kids on the Google Plus, and Facebook, of course, and my blog of geeky things, Damn Good Coffee and Hots. And there's this little podcast that I do with Karen called the Fandom Zone Podcast.
Yay.
Which we would definitely love more followers. So if we somehow endeared ourselves to your hearts, please throw us a bone and give us a like on Facebook. We'd appreciate it. And listen to our podcast.
Absolutely. I am at Jesse Jackson DFW. Because there isn't room to say Jesse Jackson, no, that, not that one, on as a Twitter handle. I am Charles and I Talk Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere. Karen and I talk Castle on Storming the Castle. And I, with a rotating list of guests, talk Bruce Springsteen and all that applies on Set Lusting Bruce. And so, Philip, thank you so much for having us on. I just appreciate it so much. And we still need to do a talk about why Jesse should be reading comics again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to be in on that talk.
Agreed.
Okay, yeah,
Because I got some titles to suggest.
we'll have to get a round table going or something, some kind of special.
Absolutely.
But
great.
thank you so much. I'm glad you could join me for this. I wish we had more of a chance to talk, more frequently.
Yeah. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, me too.
But I'll just close this out
Well,
by
you're always
saying
welcome. You're always welcome
on the Fandom Zone.
Yeah, you're always welcome.
Yeah, always welcome there.
You've been on before.
Okay, thank you. I will keep that in mind. I would love to come down. It's just a matter of time. I do 20 million podcasts.
Yep.
That's true.
Well, you got to dial some of that back there.
No.
Yeah.
No.
No. There's
No?
Karen
always
and
time for
Jesse
more
know now.
podcasting.
I forget who I'm talking to. Never mind.
But yeah, I'll just close this out by saying, fans, write the DC, however you get a hold of them. Let's get Charles Skaggs some a new Titans book, a new Nightwing book, and maybe he'll take some creative input from the rest of us. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you, everyone, and come back next time for more Nightwing, and good night.